Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zarrell. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick.
Hi there.
Yeah, we're at different locations today because that's what the law says. So, with that being said, visit us at
I tried, but I ran into Morgan Freeman, and he and his team turned me around and made me go back to camp. And outbreak.
Yeah, hopefully everybody listening to this show gets it. I would assume so. Visit us at ihatecritics.net. There is our flick chart, or not our flick chart, our Patreon support. Again, I understand this is tough. Times are tough. So if you need to cut down on the Patreon, I understand that for the time being, especially those of you who are out of work. But it is there if you want to support the podcast. There's also our TeePublic page, which is also on ihatecritics.net. As far as I know, they're still sending out T-shirts if you want anything. So go ahead and shop there and see if there's a design you like. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. CriticsPod is our handle. And our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Alexa, and YouTube. Subscribe to the show. Click the notifications to get notified when a new show's up. Like the show, rate and review the show. We'll read any reviews on the air, and if there's an entertaining comment and we see it, we'll try to bring that to the show as well. But yeah, for the most part, movie theaters are closed. That kind of throws our podcast for a loop a little bit. But we did watch movies because there's not a whole lot else to do. So,
right.
What'd you watch this week?
Well, I watched a documentary on Netflix about ZZ Top.
Really?
Yeah.
What gave you that idea?
I happen to be a big ZZ Top fan. I have been since the MTV days. I can't call myself a purist. I'm not that old, but I watched. I grew up on ZZ Top videos, and when you told me there was a ZZ Top documentary on Netflix, I was like, I got to watch that. I've been, like I said, I discovered him in the '80s, but I also listened to like classic rock radio growing up a lot, and you always were hearing ZZ Top, LaGrange and Tush and all those incredible songs, and it was almost like listening to a different band. You get the greatest hits, right, and you're listening to the classic, like this amazing '70s rock and roll, and then you get to the '80s, and the synthesizer comes in, and somehow it didn't feel like a sellout, and that's what makes them so interesting and mysterious and strange and very, very unique.
Yeah, I've always been a fan as well, and on my other podcast, I get to interview rock stars, and one question I always ask them, almost every interview, is about the mystique of the '70s, the '60s and '70s versus the accessibility today, but the lack of mystique, and which they prefer. And ZZ Top's one of those bands where you don't know anything about them, really. I mean, they were kind of faceless through the '70s. Then they come out in the '80s with these beards, and no one really knows what they look like. No one knows anything about them, and it's just kind of cool to see them sitting down and talking about their music. Because, I mean, Billy Gibbons is up there among the greatest guitar players of all time, and you don't know that because he's just the guy with the beard pointing at hot cars and hot girls from the MTV days. And
this is called ZZ Top, that little old band from Texas. For anybody who wants to watch this, it's not that hard to find. If you literally search ZZ on Netflix, is the first thing that comes up. But they want to give credit where credit is due on this. It was directed by Sam Dunn, and of course it features all the band. And a couple of different rock stars in there who were talking about the music of ZZ Top. One of the guys from Queens of the Stone Age, one of the guys from Mumford & Sons pops up talking about ZZ Top. Bands I wouldn't have expected necessarily talking about ZZ Top.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked at the bands they did. I mean, the Black Keys, I guess I could kind of see them. But yeah, there's a lot of bands you would think, one, their peers. They weren't really in the documentary much. I figured you'd see people from that era because I know they're one of the most respected bands. But at the same time, I don't know. It didn't need it. I was just kind of surprised I didn't see him. But
Steve Miller pops up for some reason for like 2 seconds.
Yeah, I forgot about him. And he doesn't really I've never liked Steve Miller, so he didn't do anything for me.
I used to be way into Steve Miller back in the day, but yeah, he got really weird. That this band never did. This is the weirdest thing because like ZZ Top is one of those bands that's never changed. No lineup changes, no real musical changes. They evolve, but they've not like there's nothing too radical. There's nothing too different. They're incredibly reliable band, and that's really a very unique niche that they've carved for themselves because nobody sounds like ZZ Top.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, give me 5 bands that are still together, the original lineup, I mean, it's pretty hard to do that's still active,
Right.
I mean, I can maybe do it, but I mean, like, some of them are from, like, the 90s. That's not fair. I mean, they're the longest. I don't think, I mean, Aerosmith's the original guys, but they were after ZZ Top. U2, they're not really doing anything. It's just impressive what they've done. If I do have a critique of the movie, it kind of ends with Equalizer, which I know, is their last big commercial thing. But I would have liked to, that was also 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would have been curious to see more about, the touring and what they've been doing after that. Because they've been active. They're constantly touring, constantly road dogs. They're still together. And they only spend maybe 3 or 4 minutes after that. But it's not, again, it doesn't ruin the documentary for me. I just would have liked to see it go longer, I guess. Maybe I just enjoyed it that much and wanted it to be longer. I don't really know.
Yeah, it is kind of surface level, a little bit spare. Yeah. But the performance footage is amazing. I mean, not just there's classic concert footage, but also just they have these modern performance cuts that reminded me a lot of. Well, it's been a trope of rather recent music documentaries where they've brought together musicians and put them in like what looks like a barn and have them play together. And this one does that too, but it's okay because ZZ Top again doesn't sound like anything else in the world. And seeing them together and performing today with also getting to see that old school footage is really awesome.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, that made me want to run downstairs and turn my guitar on and learn some ZZ Top songs. And I've been listening to a lot of ZZ Top all day long because of it and playing along with it. Yeah, but if you're into ZZ Top, you've probably already seen it because it was on the front page of my Facebook. If you're just into rock in general and just kind of a casual ZZ Top fan, check it out. It's really interesting. If you're just into, well, I shouldn't say it. If you're into documentaries, you can pass. But if you're just into rock music and you want to be nostalgic for a while, check it out. It's worth it.
It's really fascinating, too, to watch a band that, so many bands get accused of selling out in the 80s. And I don't necessarily think that they did. I think for them, as opposed to selling out and becoming more modern, they really treated it like an evolution of the band, like a embracing of what was modern at the time. And I found an interesting part of that where they split up for like 3 years. They just didn't do anything for 3 years. And Billy Gibbons, I think it was, went to Europe and was investigating all the music there. Came back and brought back some weird ideas, and they just kind of went with it because they were kind of interested. Where is this going to take us? That again adds to that mystery. Also, this thing that their original manager launched them on was this idea that we're not going to talk to the media, we're not going to tell anybody, we're not going to take pictures, you're not doing anything. You're just going to get on stage and play and let people discover you. And it was a risky choice. It really worked out.
Yeah. You could argue that they sold out, I guess, but I disagree. I think you're right. It's more of it was a natural progression for what they did. But I mean, they do address it, the change in style, but it's music was evolving that way, and they weren't the only band. A lot of bands from the 70s, their styles changed in that era. Rush, yes, Aerosmith, Kiss, all of them, it was different. So it was just a different time, but those songs were good. It still sounded like ZZ Top, but it was a little different, and I don't know. It was just really... They did a good job of addressing it. And it was a bold move for them, because they were... all the bands I mentioned, they were the most bluesy of all of them. So you have these purists that are going to be more, I don't know what the right word is. They're going to hold them, more strict and not let them evolve. And it didn't work against them. In fact, it helped them out and brought more people to the party. And now they play whatever they want, whenever they want, for the rest of their career.
Yeah, I just the even the calculated stuff with the girls and the cars and again, for some reason for them it did not feel unnatural. It didn't feel forced. I think they embraced it well. That they come off a lot more blameless than other bands might have at that time.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it quite a bit, and it was just good to see those guys talk because you really never get to see them. In interviews, like Sean said, it was a strategic part by their manager, and this is them really getting to introduce themselves for the first time in almost 50 years to their audience. So it was neat for me. Anything else on ZZ Top before we move on?
I was wondering if you'd read anything about them before, like what little did you know about them going into this?
I knew that Billy and Jimi Hendrix were friends, and that he had was a road manager for him. And I had been told that Jimi Hendrix's favorite guitar player was Billy Gibbons, which doesn't surprise me based on. I mean, when they're jamming, that's all Billy Gibbons. I mean, it's them, but it's you realize he is the band. And he is the highest talent in the band. He's one of the best guitar players of all time. And so I knew that much about him, but I didn't know I didn't even know when their beards started. I didn't know, I didn't know about the 3-year hiatus. I didn't realize they started in 1969. I thought they were later than that. So there was a lot I didn't know about them. But I don't know about
that was quite a
books.
unique fork in the road, too. I mean, when you talk about 1969 and the start of the band, there were 2 other guys that Billy was working with as ZZ Top. They left, and he decided to keep going.
Yeah, and the ZZ Top wasn't, but, Billy kind of came from a psychedelic and blues mixture before that, which was really weird. I mean, I couldn't imagine ZZ Top being that psychedelic, but it does make sense that that's where he came from because, like you were saying, they don't sound like anything. They're kind of their own lane. So it's kind of cool to see where it all came from. I mean, they even dig into the punk, how Billy got influenced by punk briefly, which I would have never thought about or even considered that happened. But it was, I don't know, just a fascinating movie for me for being a fan.
I said there was a lot of fan service to it.
Well, yeah,
there's a lot of fan service to it.
Yeah, that's true.
But I don't think that's too bad.
No, I mean it wasn't pretending not to have fan service too, so that worked in its favor.
Right.
What else did you watch this week?
Well, I let's see. What were we supposed to watch this week? Oh yeah, Richard Gere. I watched An Officer and a Gentleman. An Officer and a Gentleman, 1982, directed by Taylor Hackford, and tells the story of a guy named Mayo who enters the Air Force and wants to become a pilot. He's stationed at this particular place, and I think it's Washington. I'm not sure. Yeah, Washington State, where he meets Deborah Winger. And Deborah Winger and her friend have this reputation, I guess, in town as being among a group of women who go looking for pilots in hopes of those pilots becoming successful and maybe being willing to take them out of this small town. Horrific in terms of a premise, but there you go. Gere is this very troubled character who's got an alcoholic father who raised him in the military and took him to the Philippines and raised him there, and he's a troubled young man, and he's going into the Air Force as a rather surprise to his father. In the Air Force, of course, he's paired up with a drill sergeant. What's his name?
Louis Gossett Jr.?
That's the one. Louis Gossett Jr., who wins an Academy Award for this, and God help me if I know why. He, he's certainly, I guess, iconic. I didn't even realize. Like, I think a lot of the stuff that he does in this movie gets credited to R. Lee Ermey in Platoon or in a Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, definitely.
Not sure why that is, but I think that's why. But there's a lot of stuff in here that he said that I know a lot of people I knew growing up said, which is it's way too much about my childhood. But this is certainly not a movie that holds up in terms of just cultural perspective. There are aspects of this movie that I don't think are bad, but there's a lot of aspects of this movie I'm just kind of wondering why they're there. What is it? Oh gosh, there was a couple scenes there's just a couple of unnecessary scenes that kind of stop things dead for a moment, and then the movie goes on. There's a lot of time spent with sex, which is good. I think that's what the point of the movie is about, kind of the sexual connection between these characters, which is fine. I think that's where the movie is kind of strong in trying to draw these two together as having some sort of bond, and that they're just desperate to be held and touched and cared for by another person in an intimate fashion, given their each of their situations. She's got this dead-end factory job. She's desperate to get out of the small town. She's also kind of resigned to being there as well. He's this rebellious young man who's trying to find a purpose, and so their coming together makes sense in that way. What doesn't make sense to me and what doesn't work for me is this happy ending, wherein they end up falling in love, and he does the big thing at the end where he shows up at her work and he's all dressed in his whites because he actually made it to graduation, even though no one believed in him, except for maybe Louis Gossett Jr. a little bit. And he picks her up and he carries her out, and love lifts us up where we belong, and blah, blah, blah. I didn't buy the ending. I didn't buy that. She's his graduation present? What is that?
Yeah. This is my uncle's favorite movie of all time, and I'd never seen it until today. And I mean, I get why people like it. I get why people love it. To me, it's like, if somebody's favorite movie is American History X or A Time to Kill or something like that, to me, this is in that lane. It's just there are strong moments, but there's also imperfections to it as well. Like you were saying, the ending is just very Hollywood. It's very, I don't know what the right word is, but I didn't hate it. It was easy to watch, but like you said, it is a little long, and you probably could have cut 15, 20 minutes out of it and made it a tighter film. But it's still hokey kind. I mean, it's not totally hokey, but it's definitely Hollywood, and it's hard to, you just see Hollywood all over it, which kind of takes me, I hold that against it a little bit, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's overly polished,
right.
For this. It's a much more gritty story, really, than what it is. This is going to be a theme for Richard Gere, apparently, because we're going to get to that in the next movie. Of overly polished stories that probably shouldn't be so polished.
Right.
This has definitely got that flavor to it. His character is incredibly bland to me. He's this series of ideas that don't really have a full purpose to me. I mean, you've got the whole thing about him and his dad, and this whole backstory that we spend, a building of him being born in the Philippines, or him being raised in the Philippines and taken around the world, and his alcoholic father who disappears after 10 minutes and isn't important at all later on. Didn't need to see him naked, by the way. That was not okay.
But you know what would have been awesome, though, is when Deborah Winger shows her real dad, if they're brother and sister. That would have turned this movie into if she held up a picture of him, his dad, that would have taken this movie in a totally different direction. That I'd have been like, you know what? You guys really went for it. Now, there's an old boy moment for you.
That would be...
I mean, I didn't want that to happen, but I did think that.
Oh my God. just you find out that he like for some reason he develops this thing on the base where he's the guy who can procure things and sell them to other guys to make a little money, but that doesn't really play a role in anything. There are times when they talk about where the movie seems to hint that he needs to grow up and be a better, become a better man, but I mean, he's not all that bad to begin with, or at least they don't demonstrate him being all that bad to begin with. He seems ready to be in the Air Force. He seems to want to be there. He seems mature enough to want to be there. He becomes rather heroic and successful very quickly. I was kind of like, are you going to build any kind of character for this guy other than he's kind of a fuck up here and there?
Yeah, it wasn't. And even when he makes bad decisions or when he's kind of a dick to Deborah Winger, you don't really buy into it because that's not what his character has shown you so far. And none of them. There's a couple conversations that try to get you there, and then there's a big, powerful scene, or supposed to be a powerful scene with his friend and his girlfriend. But even that is just one you can tell it's written by a guy because the whole thing they're worried about girls getting pregnant and holding it against them. But they don't even really. They don't lead into that either. They just kind of do it a little bit, and then it spins out of control and he kills himself. I mean, it is kind of sloppy. I don't know. They didn't. The execution there at the end wasn't as tight as it should be, I guess is what I'm saying. That scene where he finds his friend hanging in the bathroom should have been more. I don't know. It should have been more Full Metal Jacket, even American History X, the curb stomps. There should be something like that you never forget. And instead, it just kind of happens, and you feel bad in the moment, but at the same time, it's not. I wouldn't call it an iconic scene. Maybe I'm wrong, but it should have been.
Certainly not that. Yeah, that's not the scene anybody remembers about that movie for sure.
And it should be.
Because it's not particularly memorable. That actor, I've got to look up his name, who played the best friend.
Yeah.
He did not do anything for me.
No. David
Keith. And David Keith's been good in things, but he's a that guy actor. He's one of those guys that everybody like, oh, yeah, I recognize his face, but I couldn't tell you who he is.
Right.
And they probably call him Keith David regularly.
I'd rather had Keith David in the role. But
by the way, his dad is played by Robert Loggia, so there's a naked Robert Loggia in this movie. So there's that to watch for. But
naked Richard Gere too.
No, Richard Gere's journey in this movie, I guess, is to go from being this one man army, this loner who doesn't like other people, and his journey is to become, I guess, more of a team player, but even that doesn't really make much sense, and it's not really well played by Gere because he seems to be a good guy throughout. Like he makes friends right away with with David Keith, and he seems to connect with Deborah Winger very, very well, relatively speaking. I mean, given that he goes into it with some limitations, with some things that he and making assumptions too about her, rather misogynist assumptions about her as well.
Right.
None of that really underlines the point very well of that he's the loner, the outsider who doesn't want to be part of the team. There's like one scene where he's like not part of the group. And then later on, he's like Mr. Supportive hugging everybody. And I guess that's the journey of the movie, but it's not really well played.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, the more we talk about it, the more disappointed I am in it. But at the time, I was kind of like, I get why people like this, if that makes sense. But yeah,
it's a pop movie. It's got a pop appeal to it, and I didn't even realize. Like, I know that song "Love Lifts Us Up Where We Belong." I know that song. I didn't realize that was like the entire fucking movie. Like that love theme plays the entire movie, like incessantly.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you don't hear the song till the end. you just hear the melody, via the score, and I don't know. And well, it's a pop movie pretending pretending it's not, and that's what bugs me about it, I guess.
Absolutely, yes, you nailed it right there. It's very self-serious, very self-serious.
Yeah.
It makes this is definitely like a director who's taking himself and what he's doing very seriously, even though what he's making isn't as serious as he thinks it is.
Right, or he's not doing a good enough job. And it kind of makes me not like Richard Gere as an actor. I mean, I'm not, like, I've seen Chicago, but I mean, I was younger and I'd probably appreciate it more today. I'm sure he's done other things that are good, but for the most part, when I've seen him, he kind of just almost monotone all the time. He's just a good looking guy, and that's what he brings to movies. I don't know. Maybe it's just the weekend of movies I watched. I don't know.
That could be, but also he does have the. I feel like I have been sold a bill of goods on Richard Gere very often because, growing up, you grew up hearing about Richard Gere a lot in the '90s and the late '80s and '90s about how what a big star he is. He's the People's Magazine's sexiest man alive. And then, of course, Pretty Woman is this massive monster hit that makes him this even bigger sex symbol than he already was. But in terms of him as an actor, is there much there? Is there a substance to him? And I see it sometimes. Like I see it in The Hoax, in Dr. T and the Women. I can see it a little bit. In Chicago, he definitely is less the wooden Richard Gere character that we see a lot of. He's very loose in that film, which is almost jarring at times, but worked for me. But in a lot of his movies, like Internal Affairs, which we just I think we did recently, and then these two movies, he's extraordinarily bland. And even in is it American Gigolo? I think it is. Even then, he wasn't particularly charismatic to me. He was very handsome, but also rather bland.
Right. It's almost like, why didn't Tom Berenger get to be the star? They look. I mean, in watching these movies, I think a different actor could have maybe. I mean, this movie has a lot of issues with it that I think a better script could have helped too. Like you said, the best parts of it were the sex, love stuff. I mean, the sex scene was very realistic and very, sexy, and it was great. But everything else was just kind of weak. But I think a better actor. I'm not saying Tom Berenger's a great actor because he's. Why I picked that name, I don't know. I'm just thinking of
because he vaguely looks like Richard Gere. He vaguely
looks like Richard Gere, and I mean, in Platoon, he acted, I guess. I don't know. But I don't know. I really think he plays the movie we're going to get to. I really think he's a big part of why you feel the way you feel about that movie. Is more his lack of holding his end of the deal up.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, which I guess is Pretty Woman. We can just go there now if you want.
Sure, let's get into Pretty Woman.
Yeah.
Pretty Woman was released this weekend 30 years ago in 1990 and stars Julia Roberts as a hooker or a prostitute or sex worker, depending upon the terminology you'd like to use.
Lady of the Night.
Lady of the Night, sure.
I don't know.
Suddenly we're in a 1950s movie. Lady, she's a hooker. She's out on Hollywood Boulevard one night when Richard Gere comes rolling up in this really awful-looking car. I guess we were sold that this is one of those big high-end cars. And I remember hearing about cars like this back in the day, but now I can't remember the name of it. I just watched the movie like an hour ago.
Sorry.
But the Lotus, that's it. There was a big deal at the time, but certainly not today. I can't even remember the last time I heard about a Lotus.
How do you remember?
But he comes rolling up. He doesn't know how to drive this car, so he hires her to get him back to his hotel. She does, and then he offers her money to spend the night, and she accepts. And things progress from there to an actual romance of sorts, where he's paying her $3,000 to spend the week with him. And to basically just give him some company while he's doing his job, which is buying companies, breaking them apart, and selling them piece by piece. He's a corporate raider, if you will. And this is basically like I guess, meant to be a romantic fairy tale.
Yeah.
I don't buy into it at all. I hate this movie. I hate it a lot. And I really like Julia Roberts. She's very attractive and very engaging, and she's got that Julia Roberts smile that is absolutely irresistible. But I can't get over just how misguided this idea is that you're going to put that you're going to just put this nice little Disney-esque romantic bow on this story. I mean, it's so awful. This is taking advantage of poor people. This is like poor people porn. It's like the greatest fantasy poor people ever have is having some rich asshole come along and just give them everything they've ever wanted. And fuck you, movie. Fuck you so much for selling this type of bullshit.
And this is why I think he's the problem, because the story is supposed to be they both change each other and they meet in the middle. But he is he's similar to Officer and Gentleman. He's likable the entire time. Even when he's doing horrible shit, there's something likable about him. So you never really buy into his character being bad. So when he finally, he changes to the, goes to her, you're not moved by it because he's kind of just a likable guy the entire time. He's kind of bland, and you totally lose that whole side of the story, and it turns into this fairy tale you're talking about that should have been way tighter, and it's just totally missed because of him and Gary Marshall.
Gary Marshall is an awful director. He has always been an awful director, and his direction here is absolutely abysmal. Like, this is a movie that doesn't understand tone. It's comic throughout, and it definitely has that like pop romantic feel, but you're still ignoring like aspects of her life and aspects of reality of her life that would totally affect what this movie, these two characters really truly are. And I know, I get it. I'm not supposed to bring that to this movie. I understand. Everybody keeps telling me that I'm not supposed to bring that to this movie. I can't do that. I can't not bring it because this movie isn't good enough for me to leave out my thoughts about the idea that we're going to sell people this bullshit fantasy that rich people come along and just give you everything you ever wanted just out of sheer dumb luck of having been in the right place at the right time. It's insidious. It really is insidious to me. But then take into account the entirety of her life is basically at his whim, even after they fall in love. Like, even after the happy ending, try to imagine what this is now going forward. Is he just going to give her half his life, or what happens if it doesn't work out, or just any type of reality whatsoever is completely ignored for this bullshit happy ending that I just don't buy at all.
Yeah, this movie is all Julia Roberts. That's why people like it. It's her. It's probably why it's Gary Marshall's best movie, unless I'm forgetting something. It's 100% her. She's so likable in it. She's so good in it. But everything around it is just such a mess. And, I mean, I get why people like it. It makes sense. Richard Gere is attractive in it. The story isn't 100% rich guy saves poor girl. But they, like I said earlier, they screw that up by, if Richard Gere's character is more like Jason Alexander's character, and then, then he changes, and then they, he's not, totally controlling her life, and they're controlling each other's life, that would make more sense.
Right.
It's not what happened. I mean, at one point he tells Jason Alexander she's a prostitute, and he gets out of it, like, in like a matter of no time at all. She forgives him pretty quickly. Jason Alexander is good, and Julia Roberts is good. The whole scene, the improv thing where Richard Gere slams the jewelry case in her hand and she laughs, that is, you can tell that's improv and a mistake, and they left it in the movie because she's so good in it, but it doesn't fit tonally with the movie. That scene that's so famous, I knew about it, and then when I saw it, I was like, that just came out of left field. All of a sudden, the character became Julia Roberts for a second. They went back to the character, and they left it in the movie. And
Very true.
Yeah,
what this movie reminds me of more than anything is 50 Shades of Grey. Yeah. This reminds me a great deal of 50 Shades of Grey because this is a movie about just this controlling rich guy who wants to run a woman's life and have her do everything that he wants her to do, and doesn't really deal with his deep emotional damage and just wants everything that he wants and gets everything he wants because he's a rich and powerful man. Yeah. I mean, that's what this reminded me of. That's how this feels to me. Is just this rich guy can have whatever he wants. He can buy whoever he wants and sell it off as the idea that maybe he's actually allegedly really romantic, when in fact he's just deeply, deeply damaged and just wants to be able to buy things.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't think that's the intent of the movie, and I don't even think that's what the story is, but that's the way it comes off with when you're done. And that's sad. That's just bad direction.
Awful direction. He is the worst. He is the worst. I just don't understand that how this lasted as long as it did. And his sister, who was so far superior to him in every way, makes like 2 movies. And
at least they're awesome.
After that, could barely get anything made. And this asshole was getting movies made every year that were exponentially worse every single time. It is some kind of karmic crime against the entire universe, the entirety of Gary Marshall's career versus that of his sister.
Now, I don't know anything. I mean, did she just not? Was she not able to get things made, or did she just take a break?
I'm not sure. I couldn't say for sure, but it just seemed to me that she should have had more opportunity, or maybe she just didn't want it. I don't know, but she was so much more talented than him. She made Big, and she made Legal Their Own, and those movies are in a single scene from each of those movies is better than anything Gary Marshall directed his entire life. Yeah,
I don't know what did he do before this? Anything? Or was this kind of the beginning?
He was a TV producer, I believe, going into this.
Okay. So, yeah, I don't... God. Julia Roberts is to blame, really. Because, I mean, I will give her... She is as good in this as she is in, like, Erin Brockovich. The issue is it's such a bad movie. You know? And... but she is so good in it that it allows people to love her in it and makes it a classic, unfortunately. And he's been able to work ever since, up until he died, of course. But, yeah, just... It's one of those movies that makes you mad because it could have been better. It could... that you see what that movie could be. And it's not... And it makes you hate the movie more than you even need to, and it's bad already.
Yeah, and there's a legendary story about this movie having had a downer ending the first time, and it was actually a much grittier movie when it was originally written. The screenwriter has debunked the idea that it was Gary Marshall that actually softened it, even though I'm sure he did in his way. The screenwriter said he was part of the process the whole time in shaping this into what it is in the end, even as his original idea was much grittier, much darker, had, like I said, an unhappy ending where they part in a very ugly fashion, and they don't end up together. And it's a much more dramatic tone than the original script. But he says that he was on board for all of the changes. So it's hard to blame anybody other than him. And I guess I blame everybody involved because it's a piece of shit. But I mean,
yeah,
his vision was realized regardless.
Yeah, even if they went with a greater ending, it doesn't make it good. I mean, you would have to change a lot to this movie besides just the ending. I mean, they could have easily had them just separate and not get back together. And it wouldn't be any better. Maybe be a tad bit better because it's darker, I guess, but not really. It's still kind of sloppy or very sloppy and just inconsistent and kind of a piece of shit other than Julia Roberts.
And it's so weird. This movie is so weird at times because at times, like, it does become like a very sexy movie. At times there are like moments that are really legitimately sexy, and it's like it doesn't feel right in the context of the rest of the movie, which is kind of I don't know, too light and too airy. And then you go to these sex scenes, and it's like this. We're in a different universe. We're in a different movie, and then we're back to this light, airy, happy PG-13 world that feels very strange.
I can't imagine showing it to somebody new today. I can't imagine they would like it. I don't believe this holds up. I get why people liked it at the time. But like if you showed somebody Star Wars today, I could see someone liking that. I don't understand why they'd like it. They may or may not get the big deal, but they'll at least appreciate it for what it is. I can't imagine this holding up to a new or like a younger kid. You know, we show Mean Girls and Clueless, and those movies hold up. This, I can't. My daughter couldn't. She was out of the room almost immediately. Granted, it was more dark, more sexual than we wanted it to be. I'd never seen it, or I don't remember seeing it. It's been, I'm sure I had, but it's been years.
Yeah.
But I mean, do you think it? I mean, I know the audience is going to like it still, but I can't imagine they're trying to show their teenagers if they would. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. I don't understand the cult for this movie. I'll never understand it. But anytime I mention how much I hate it, people are shocked. They go into convulsions of just disbelief because how dare anybody dislike this movie? Well, let alone, but I mean, it's even more shocking because I hate it so much. I think it's just so bad.
Am I wrong about what I'm saying about Julia Roberts? I mean, I really liked her in it. I just thought the movie was a piece of shit. Am I wrong there?
No, you're not wrong. She's incredibly likable. There's a reason why she became the icon that she became. And her and Gear, like in those sexy moments, it's legit. It's for real. The chemistry is certainly there. I just find the whole notion of this movie to be so insidious and such a bullshit propaganda piece for the benevolence of rich people that I just can't get over it. I can't. It bothers me so much.
Well, you shouldn't have to. The movie should take you out of that. You're going to naturally have that. You're going to bring that to the movie. It's the movie's job to break that, make you forget about it. And it doesn't do that. So, I mean, I'm with you on that. I don't know.
It's just like the Jason Alexander character, the Ralph Bellamy character. They're these caricatures, and then you've got Hector Elizondo, who's another kind of odd caricature, who's just this benevolent angel who does everything that he's asked of and covers up what he needs to cover up and has important information when it's needed. And
right,
there's no character there. There's no real inner life to that character. And everybody always praises that character. I don't understand that. There's no life there. He just is functional. He's this plot function that exists to repair whatever needs to be repaired at any moment. God, I hate this movie.
Well, in Richard Gere's big turn, where he goes and when he goes and buys the company, but instead of selling it apart, tearing it apart, he decides to work with him and help grow the company. I didn't buy that for half a second, and in order for this movie to work, you got to buy that scene, and it's more eye-rolling than anything, and yeah.
Oh, it's so true. And Jason Alexander's character in that whole scenario. I mean, you can't even buy anything that he does. He's just such a ridiculous. Like we need a villain. Let's make him the villain.
Right, but I mean, I guess where that works is Seinfeld exists. So at least you have George Costanza along with Julia Roberts. I don't know if that makes any sense. But yeah, more time on Pretty Woman than I think you ever thought you'd spend on this podcast.
I hate this movie, and ironically enough, it's my mom's favorite movie of all time, which bothers me to no end.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's my mom's favorite. My mom definitely loves it, so I understand. Where else are we going?
Well, in 1990, The Ambulance was released, starring Eric Roberts, James Earl Jones, and Janine Turner. This is a movie about an evil ambulance that goes around picking up women and taking them away to torture and kill them. Eric Roberts plays a Marvel Comics animator. He draws comic books. He actually works for Stan Lee, who plays his boss as Stan Lee in the movie, which is weird and unnecessary. Yeah. But Stan Lee's not bad. He may be the best thing in this movie. Eric Roberts has this glorious mullet, just the most amazing 90s mullet you've ever seen. And he's so drunk and so high in this movie. so often that it threatens to be entertaining. But unfortunately, this is such a stupid idea of a movie that it never really becomes entertaining. James Earl Jones saying "fuck" is pretty interesting. Like I can't even imagine it. It so blows my mind hearing him say "fuck" so many times, and with that James Earl Jones voice, it's like, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, I might have to watch that just for that. I mean, well, I remember the first time I heard Morgan Freeman say it, it was weird for me. I mean, I know he said it a lot in movies, so it's not. But, growing up, he was in a lot of those PG-13 movies, and all of a sudden you go and see 7, you're like, holy shit. But, yeah, James Earl Jones, I never even thought about that. That'd be insane.
It's jarring. It's jarring, to say the least. And he's bad in this movie too. He's got a glorious death scene where he finds the mysterious killer ambulance. The ambulance drives past him, and instead of hitting him with the ambulance, the driver reaches out and stabs him from the moving ambulance.
Wow.
And then he's just laying on the ground. He's got a knife in his chest, and he's just biting the air for some reason.
So is this entertaining?
I mean,
it kind of sounds like it might be, but
I'm giving you the highlights here that are kind of like so bad it's good. But there's a lot more movie that is just kind of there.
Oh. So there's more beyond Eric Roberts' mullet and James Earl Jones
right.
Swearing.
A little too much, yeah.
It sounds like a great midnight movie, but apparently not.
Maybe give it a shot. Maybe.
Well, I got nothing else to do.
It's free on YouTube, so there you go.
Huh. Did you watch anything else?
No, I did not. It's been a weird week. I'm considered a first responder, so I'm still going to work, even though the entire state that we live in is locked down. So that's weird.
Yeah.
But I did. Oh, well, I'm not allowed to talk about it yet because I'm under an embargo. I spent the last 2 days binging the entirety of a new Amazon series called Upload from Greg Daniels, the creator of Parks and Rec and The Office. And I'll be dropping that review next month sometime.
Nice.
But that's been basic. Let's take it up much of my week.
I can imagine. What is going on? I mean, you mentioned before we recorded that Lovebirds is now going straight to Netflix. Anything else going straight to streaming that they're going to skip the theaters on?
Nothing has been announced. I mean, Trolls, obviously, we already know about. But the movies that are currently in theaters, like Bloodshot, The Invisible Man, Emma, are all available now to rent or stream.
Yes.
Or rent. I mean, you can rent and stream. I mean.
Yeah,
so if you want to watch The Invisible Man, Bob, it's available now.
I'm probably going to. My wife, I said The Hunter, The Invisible Man, and she goes, you choose. And I was like, I really don't care. I love The Hunt's still my favorite movie of the year. But we ended up watching that. That's where she went, and loved it the second time too. Betty Gilpin is so fucking good.
She's really good.
But you're right. There's a bunch of cool movies, or I don't necessarily cool, but I mean Invisible Man for sure, that are available for $20 on Amazon to rent and stream, and that's exciting. I'm curious what is going to happen. I didn't know this. My Blu-ray players and 4K players, I can't get Hulu or Disney Plus on them.
Really?
Or the WWE Network. They've taken them off my. I don't know why. They're all Sony. But it's weird, and I was Googling it, and that it says that's a fact. A lot of Sony Blu-rays, they've removed Disney Plus, Hulu, and WWE from them. So I don't know why, especially Disney Plus, unless Netflix.
Well, you can get Disney. Can't you get that stuff through Amazon Prime?
No, you got to pay for it. Well, I don't know. First of all, I haven't bought Disney Plus, so there's that. But I do have Hulu, and we could not stream Handmaid's Tale unless we bought the season. So I mean, it's on my smart TVs. I can get it on my iPad, obviously. So I still have access to it, obviously. You go to the website. But it was weird. I didn't know that Sony had taken them off certain Blu-ray players. And this isn't just one. This is multiple. And I tried Googling it to see what I'm doing wrong. And sure enough, they're just not available on certain models, which I found really weird. And I thought would be a bigger story if that was real. But
yeah, no kidding. You thinking about getting WWE networks now that you're locked in? Nothing better to do.
Oh, I have it. I'm thinking about getting rid of it. There's nothing. I don't want to watch them wrestle in an empty arena for WrestleMania. Just postpone it till July or whatever.
Yeah. But, I mean, I watched an old episode of Superstars the other night, so I mean, I'm still watching.
I have been watching. I watched Stone Cold and Bret Hart sit down. I enjoy that. I love how miserable Bret Hart is. It just makes me happy. And it makes me hate people, and I like hating people. But yeah, no, I have been watching the documentaries and stuff, but it is a weird time. Like, as a movie critic, I don't want to. I'm not asking how much, of what you do is as a critic, but how much. I mean, does it affect you? Your livelihood by not being able to go to the theater, or is it more your day job that covers it? Like, I guess I don't understand how a critic works in terms of, do they get paid for seeing the movie, or is it the job that they have that goes along with being a critic that pays them?
But I'm sure there's a lot of critics who are struggling right now because they've got nothing really new to write about other than Netflix movies. But I'm still also getting links to screeners still, so I've got those coming up soon, probably to talk about. But for the most part.
And I'm not asking to go into...
My day job pays me for the most part for the radio job, and film criticism is something that I do. I still get paid to do it, and I'm still a paid critic. But yeah, there isn't really anything for me to watch or write about right now.
So, and again, I don't want to go into personal stuff, but when you go to the... like you've mentioned before that, you go to the Cinemark, well, you don't have to go to Regal, you don't have to watch Netflix. How does Cinemark hire you, or is it still is it the radio station or a blog or what? How does that all? I mean, unless you don't want to talk about it. Sorry,
no, I'm talking about it. It's totally cool. I'm a member of the Broadcast Film Critics Association, which gives me free access to go to the movies. At least they don't, not officially, but basically having that credibility allows the theater to go, oh, critic, come on in. So I get to go for free. Whenever I go, whenever it starts going again.
But you have to have a relationship with the theater. Is that kind of how it works? Or you've mentioned
it's tenuous at times. When they change managers, it can be kind of awkward trying to explain them to them because it's become film criticism has become so marginalized in this day and age. It's not what it used to be when Ebert was still around. But you forget the impact that he had. We really do forget the impact that he and Gene had. They opened up the world for a lot of people, and granted, especially when it was changing from the newspaper era into the online era, they saved a lot of critics' jobs that way by giving them a place to a purpose and still what do you call it? It exists. I guess people remembered that film critics still exist and I still have a role to play. And it's been weird since he's been gone. Without him, critics don't have the profile that we used to. There is no one has stepped in to fill that void.
No.
There's no film critic that is top of mind for the entire country the way he was. Or they may never be again. And that is affecting a lot of people's jobs for sure. And this has not helped that at all because there's you can write about Netflix movies, you can write retrospectives and all that, but it's hard to find outlets now that are if it's not really relevant in the culture right now, what are we supposed to do with it? And
I mean, I know it's harder for critics, but journalists in general are having that issue too because of the variety, the fact that people do it for free. And it makes it hard to get paid. Really, you almost have to get paid based on how it performs more so than the content itself, which kind of sucks. But it's just a weird time. And then you throw this into it, it gets even weirder. how are you holding up with the coronavirus stuff?
It's weird. Anytime any type of ache or pain, or I've got a minor headache right now that I know is sinus, but it still kind of freaks you out. It's still going like,
Right.
a friend's father apparently has it, which is freaky to have that level of connection. When you think about it, makes you think about the number of people that you interact with.
Right.
I've never interacted with him. He lives in another state, so that's like I don't have any direct connections that I'm aware of. But
Right.
yeah, I'm also considered a first responder, and I've been talking to people from the health department lately. So who knows?
Yeah, and I mean, I know I don't know. I'm not worried about it. I'm also 40, reasonably decent health. Most likely, if I get it, I'll be fine as long as I don't pass it on to someone else. So I'm not worried about it, but I know people that have, my mom, for instance, has autoimmune issues. My dad has cancer. There's other things going on that it makes it scary. My friends' parents have stuff. So it's like, I don't know. I'm not a first responder per se. I do work for a company that makes medical equipment. We're in a bordering state, so the state that I'm in is shut down, but the state next to us is not, and I work in that state. So we don't know what to do. Right now we're just doing business as usual. We're also not slowing down, which is weird. I don't know. I'm trying to just kind of take my mind off it. I haven't been on social media at all. Not even
good choice. It's a good choice.
It's not even a choice. I just kind of it's just been like, I don't know. I was playing basketball with my kids, played some baseball with my son before I got too cold, watched the ZZ Top documentary. I was like, I want to play some guitar. So I played guitar for hours on end, hung out with my wife, watched The Hunt, next, 2 days just go by like that. Now I could see it getting tough here over the next 3 weeks or however long it's going to be. But I also think last week when you were on the show down here, you were mentioning things that all of a sudden you can see the government can do things that act like it could never do.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a lot of good things come out of this. So I don't know. I have a pretty positive outlook on it. Yes, people are going to die and that sucks, but I try to, and I hope nobody does, and I especially hope nobody I know does. I think there's a shot that nobody I know is going to die. I think we'll probably know somebody that gets it, but I don't think we're necessarily going to know somebody that dies from this. But
it's interesting. I've talked about this on the show before, where we talk about post-apocalyptic movies and how I don't really care for those movies because they all have this same sort of negative opinion of humanity that permeates so much of that level of fiction. And I understand that it's more dramatic that way, that it's a greater, creates a greater sense of danger when you're focusing on the ugliness of the world and the potential ugliness of the world. But I think from what I've seen, the level of coming together and people doing things for other people, the people who are out there right now circulating to help people specifically and figuring out different ways that they can help people, just inspires me, because that's why I hate post-apocalyptic fiction so much, is that it hates humanity more than humanity really hates itself.
Yeah, and I don't want to stop you because I agree, but I don't like to call this post-apocalyptic because a lot of people are. A friend of mine was just like, we're in a movie. I'm like, we're the most boring movie of all time because this virus isn't killing you instantly. No one's turning into a zombie, and the people aren't being horrible. I think if it gets too bad, I think there may be an initial wave of dickheads that make it annoying, but you're right. I think over time, you're going to see people doing more good, but I don't think it's even going to get that bad. I think you're going to just see people doing good out of this. This is, I was hesitant to compare it to 9/11 or something else that monumental, but I think I'm wrong there. I think it is going to be, we're going to remember this the rest of our lives, but I do think a lot of good's going to come out of it. Stuff we didn't think the government could do, we're going to see it working. A lot of my friends want to I don't want to. Never mind. I'm going to say anything good about Trump because that's not what I was going to do. But it would have come off that way. But basically, what Bernie Sanders wants, kind of where we're heading, whether he's elected or not. And Trump's kind of pushing it there, whether he knows it or not. And it's not, I don't want to give him credit for that. I don't think he's doing it intentionally. I think it's just happening because we need it. And I think that's encouraging. I don't know. Like, I was hesitant to even talk about it on the show because I don't want to use the coronavirus to get people to listen to the show because there's enough podcasts talking about it anyway. But I was curious because we're probably an hour away from each other right now, most likely locked down as much as we have to be. So I was just curious what was going on, and it sounds like you're going to they're never going to shut you down, really. There's no reason to. They need, like you said, you're a first responder. And I can't imagine that ever getting to the point where we're doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I mean, because somebody's got to deliver the information, and I've got this giant megaphone with which to do so to several thousands of people on local radio, and so I feel, for me, it's a little bit easier, I guess, because I feel like I have a purpose. So it's a little easier for me than a lot of other people who, like right now, have no purpose whatsoever. They don't have a job to go to. They don't have anything they can do. They're just locked in their homes, and that's rough. That's not easy. It's like a prison.
Yeah, it can be, but try not to let it be. I guess that's my only advice. Not that my advice matters. My wife and kids they're pretty much locked here. My wife is volunteering and helping deliver food to people who can't afford it, which is not as dangerous as the people in the grocery stores, but still it's not that easy either. And then I still get to go to my job, and there's a lot of social distance where I'm at. So I'm kind of fortunate where I get that escape. Weirdly enough, going to work, but I don't know. So hopefully everybody's doing well, and as far as I know, we're going to keep doing the podcast. It will probably be like this for the time being, but it should be fun enough. Want to play Flick Sharp before we go?
Yeah, fun stuff to talk about.
All right.
Yeah, let's totally.
All right, Scarface or Sunset Boulevard, 1950?
Sunset Boulevard. I hate Scarface.
You know what else I watched is the documentary on HBO about Suge Knight, and he talks about how much he likes Scarface.
Fitting.
Beverly Hills Cop, Alice in Wonderland, 2010.
Oh, Beverly Hills Cop by a lot, because I hate that Alice in Wonderland movie. It's so terrible. By the way, I've seen the McMillions documentary.
McMillions.
No, or is it out yet?
I have not.
There's a documentary apparently was produced by Mark Wahlberg about the first wave of the McDonald's monopoly and how it was corrupted by the mafia, which I find that sounds like an amazing story that I desperately want to hear, but I don't have HBO.
I'm definitely I'll look for it. And if it's out, I'll let you know because I have HBO on Amazon, so you can just log into my account and watch it.
Thanks, man.
Let's see. Eastern Promises, Star Wars.
Star Wars for the nostalgia only, because I love Eastern Promises. But I'll never watch Eastern Promises again, probably.
You don't got a quarter nearby, do you? I can go get one at your table. I just have to take my headphones off.
Here we go. All right. Ready?
Yeah.
All right. It's Tails.
Star Wars it is. Harold and Kumar escape from Guantanamo, Vanilla Sky.
Vanilla Sky.
As much as I dislike Vanilla Sky, I'll go with you.
You don't like Harold and Kumar all that much?
I don't dislike it, but it is kind of, that particular one's kind of a throwaway movie. And it's not fair. At least Vanilla Sky tried. Kill Bill Volume 2, Bowfinger.
Kill Bill.
Do you like Bowfinger at all?
I do. I own Bowfinger. I haven't watched it since it came out, but I remember liking it.
Yeah, it's one of those rare Steve Martin, Eddie Murphy movies in that time that's good. Because they were making a lot of shit at that point.
Hell yeah.
Kong, Skull Island, Shrek 2.
Shrek 2.
Yeah. Kong was disappointing. Death Becomes Her, The Fifth Element.
The Fifth Element.
Agreed. Blade Runner, What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
Blade Runner.
Yes. The Ring, An American Haunting, 2006.
Oh, man. Let's see. Which shitty horror movie do I hate less?
I refuse to acknowledge The Ring as a bad movie. I understand what came out of it, but The Ring itself is okay.
The Ring.
But it's fair to blame it for everything that came afterwards. Romancing the Stone, Hot Fuzz.
I know a lot of people are going to be annoyed by this, but I'll go with Romancing the Stone because I don't care for Hot Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz is the one I like the most of the three that they did. So go ahead and flip the quarter.
Tails.
Oh, well, I won one. It's rare. Breakfast at Tiffany's, The Punisher. You pick which one. I don't care.
The Punisher. The Punisher is somehow less racist.
Is it? I mean, I don't know that I've seen any Punisher movies, but is it fair if the Punisher is kind of racist but more recent, but Breakfast at Tiffany's older and just didn't know better? Does that change anything?
Oh, they knew that's no. They had to know.
Okay. You Can't Get Away with Murder, 1939. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one actually.
All right, good. That's next week's classic. All right, Paranormal Activity, Basic Instinct.
They're both garbage. Paranormal Activity.
I agree. That was close to a good movie. I think it falls apart at the end.
Yeah, definitely.
Like with Blair Witch, you're either in or you're out. So you either hate it or you love it. With that one, I was in and then it took me out. Like midway through, and I was like, "You're not going to get me back." Once you're out of that movie, you're just watching fucking security footage.
Right.
Schindler's List, Risky Business.
Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Even though I'll never watch it again.
Wild Hogs, the 40-year-old virgin.
40-year-old virgin by a lot.
I saw Wild Hogs in the theater.
Lucky you.
Yeah,
I did too, of course.
Well, yeah, but I wasn't doing this podcast at the time. I just had a father-in-law from straight out of the trailer park come to visit me. I don't think he listens. I hope not. Anyway, he really wanted to see Wild Hog. He's a Harley guy, and he loved it. Spring Breakers, Carlito's Way.
Spring Breakers.
I'll go with A24 as well. Some Like It Hot, Romancing the Stone.
Some Like It Hot.
Agreed. Along Came Polly, Something's Gotta Give.
Whew. Pick your poison. Something's Gotta Give.
I was just going to go wherever you went. I was surprised you went there. Be Kind.
There's too many poop jokes in Along Came Polly. He's got irritable bowel syndrome, and the movie thinks that's funny.
Oh, speaking of, we never addressed this on the podcast. You did a poop podcast. What was that? I kept meaning to plug that because that's what you're supposed to do when you go on other podcasts, and I forgot all about it every time we record. Now's a chance.
It was fun. The two ladies who hosted are really a wonderful pair. I posted a link to it on the Facebook page. I honestly I don't remember the name of it now off the top of my head, which is awful of me, but
Well, it's my
Yeah.
fault for bringing it up when you're not prepared. We did not talk about this.
But I had a really good time. We talked about poop in the movies, which has always been a subject that has always made me very uncomfortable, and I always get a little bit like it turns my stomach to even think about that stuff. But it's surprising the amount of things that we were able to find and talk about other than Sallow. Like there were plenty of things, and we went to some very weird places and had some very unique. We had a unique conversation that went to a lot of different places about my overall discomfort with the situation, with that particular topic, and bathroom etiquette and and movies.
It's not the Poop Talk podcast, is it?
The link's on our Facebook page, but
Yeah.
it was so long ago. I'm not sure how far down it is. That would be the only way I'd know how to find it.
I will go look it up and try to post it with the podcast. I apologize to the host of that show for calling him out in the middle of the episode.
It's two women who host it.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite fart or poop joke in a movie?
Yeah. The one that always surprised me that I thought I was always going to be somebody who walked out of movies when this happened because, like Formula 51 with Samuel L. Jackson made me walk out. There's a movie called College that has a guy drinking beer through another guy's ass. It's filtered like through his ass crack into his mouth and made me walk out. So I always kind of was stubborn about that joke. I thought I'd always walk out if anybody did that. But then the movie Hall Pass with Jason Sudeikis and Owen Wilson came out, and that movie has this explosive diarrhea scene that I legitimately laughed out loud at. And I was embarrassed and I was horrified, but I did walk out because it did make me laugh.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you my favorite poop scene. My favorite fart scene weird we're having this on the, is in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back when they're doing the diamond heist thing, and Allie Larder just farts and sets everything off. And then it's not even really a joke because immediately she's like, the stoner fuck was right. And they play it very seriously and go from there. I've always loved that joke.
It's so clever too, because the way he does that type of joke is he layers it in. So the whole time they're setting up that joke that basically like girls don't fart, like which is stupid, but they layered it in there, and then when it happens, it's funny.
That movie also has one of the dumbest fart jokes early on when Jason Mewes farts. Be Kind, Rewind, or Finding Nemo?
Finding Nemo.
Yeah, that movie came out.
You're thinking about Jay and Silent Bob.
Jumanji, Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. This is a Robin Williams Jumanji.
Harold and Kumar. I just can't sit through the original Jumanji.
Yeah, I'm with you. I did watch the second one, or the third one, this week as well. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Did you like it?
Yeah, I'd seen it in the theater. My wife hadn't seen it though. Yeah, it was fun. I remember when the trailer came on, I think we talked about it on the podcast, not knowing how I'd feel about The Rock and Kevin Hart doing Danny DeVito and Danny Glover, but I thought it really worked when the movie actually came out. It made sense, and
they didn't overplay it. That was a real
Right.
key too. Is they did not overplay it.
Yeah, and then Aquafina later on. It's fun. It is what it is. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Resident Evil Apocalypse.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Even though that they're both really tire fire movies.
Yeah. And I want to apologize to anybody listening right now. I don't know how it sounds. My headphones have been jacked up for like 3 weeks. I can't hear myself, and I'm moving all over the mic right now. So if it doesn't sound great, I apologize.
You sounded fine to me the whole time. So
All right, good. Final Destination 2, Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring.